welcome to Assimilating Knowledge, episode 0.3. Today we're going to be talking to Chris from the YouTube channel Neon Tardis. Chris, what's going on, man?
Hey, how you doing, man? Thank you for having me on. It's so nice to be doing on something on somebody else's kind of live broadcast because I don't have to press anything. I don't have to do anything. It's great. So glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Yeah, today we're just going to be kind of doing it in an interview style, and then you do a lot of reacting to clips and stuff. So I thought we'd do a little bit of that in the end and just kind of see how it goes.
Hell yeah.
So what happened, man? How did you decide to start your own channel?
Oh Christ! I mean, this is my third kind of YouTube channel, not for kind of the usual kind of reasons. I didn't just kind of give up on them for any old kind of reason. It's kind of the whole kind of nerdrotic thing. You know, I kind of started watching kind of Uncle Gary, and I think as Heel versus Babyface, you know, kind of Jeremy, you know, those kind of Holy Trinity guys, and I just decided, you know, let's give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? You know, all I wanted to do was kind of screech into the void. And I still do, and that's fine. So about 2 years ago, I've been kind of doing this kind of stuff. Successfully is debatable. And I started off with a solo project, got to about 500 subscribers, give or take, which was pretty, I didn't think I was going to get anywhere near there. I had hooked up with a gentleman from across the pond. We did a lot of streaming together. So every Saturday, you know, he was kind of my introduction into kind of, you know, just that whole kind of podcast kind of thing, if you will. And then about I think it was about October or November last year, we decided to stop our solo projects and kind of make a kind of a channel together. And it was going great. I think we got just under 2,000 subscribers. We had a little website. Everything was great. And then just before New Year's, the guy ghosted me. Completely disappeared.
Really?
Deleted the StreamYards channel that we use to kind of start the stream. So about half an hour before we were due to go live, this all kind of kicked off. And I kind of panicking, like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. So January this year, I had to make the decision of either giving it all up, carrying on with a channel when he was supposed to be two people, fielding different topics didn't really seem right to me. So it was either start fresh once more or give it up. And I decided to kind of start again with a bit more of a revised and relaxed and kind of unpressured kind of approach to it. I'm mainly now more about streaming than making little video content. I kind of worked out, and that's the most important thing I would advise, is you got to work out what, you know, is enjoyable for you to do. And I worked out pretty quickly in this run that I didn't enjoy making videos, so I'm just doing more streaming, and I've had a blast doing it. And, you know, like meeting people such as yourselves, you know, the internet's great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too, is for the longest time I would watch these, you know, in the beginning, I just watched videos and I thought, man, there is no way that I could edit those videos and do all of the prep work. I mean, the amount of work that goes into a video. But then I got into streaming and I was like, boy, I can do this. I can do this. Like, this would be fun. And just jump in. It's particularly when you start following some of the new creators where the chat isn't, you know, 400 people. Yeah, man, you can have a lot of fun when there's like 20 some people in a chat, just having a good time, you know?
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know, there's no point worrying about kind of super chats and monetization and all this kind of stuff. You know, if you're not enjoying it, you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, yes, you know, somewhere in the back of our mind, we're all okay with becoming Joe Rogan or old man Gary, right? We're all cool with that. But man, as long as you're having fun,
setting your expectations appropriately is important, I think, because otherwise you're going to get upset very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, you when you're trying to ride that algorithm, or, you know, you're constantly refreshing your subscribers and you're like, wow, I'm still at 12.
Yeah. And it happens. I mean, I've been on this iteration, kind of stayed around 10, then kind of all of a sudden kind of flew to 20, then to 30, then I think we're approaching 40 now, I think. And that's fine. You know, if it stays in the 10s increasing, that's fine. And if it goes down, it goes down. You know, there's not a lot you can kind of control about it. But as long as you've got your core community there, you know, the people that you have a laugh with, as you say, that's the only thing that matters, you know?
Right. But that's an interesting story. I don't believe I've ever heard of anybody that was in your particular situation where you had a growing channel and then your co-host just ghosted you. That's
It
insane.
sucks. I wish I could give you a story about how I understand why, but I can't, unfortunately. I've kind of moved on from it. You have to. Trust me, I was properly seething at the time because, you know, this wasn't, you know, I would have had no issue if the person had turned around and said, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, can we? I was like, yeah, fine, no problem. We could wind it down one way or the other. That's not a problem. But when you're about 15 minutes going live and you know there are a couple of people that want to hang out with you and stuff, and you're trying to piece together what's going wrong, you know, it sucks, man. Yeah, you know, that's the one thing I'd say about the internet, is that it's just all too easy to disappear, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really weird one. And you know, another thing that I found kind of strange is I've been, you know, really searching hard trying to find creators that don't necessarily have a lot of followers and seeing if, you know, maybe we can do some synergy back and forth and get some guests. And the amount of YouTube channels that I've run into where they have like 200-300 videos, you know, they made it up to 2,000-3,000 people and they just stopped making content like 3 years ago, you know. There is a ghost town of dead channels out there.
I can imagine. The least you can do is just delete it. Do you know what I mean? It's like if it's not for you, then just delete the channel. You know, have it. It can just be electronic waste, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's. I find that to be crazy. And so you used to do videos, now you just clip your live streams and put those out.
No, I don't. I don't even do that. I don't even do that. I just leave. I mean, I've got 1 or 2 videos. We've done some kind of rating Doctor Who tier listing for a bit of fun. But all I do now is I do a main stream on Saturday. I've put my foot in the water with gaming streams. And that's turning into a technological disaster because whatever I do, I can't seem to get audio right, and it's driving me mad. And I've also started doing a little a mini wrestling kind of podcast, not where I wrestle. That would probably be a bit more interesting. But when we talk for around an hour with Crossman Wrestling, shout out. And that's kind of my schedule now. You know, I've got like a talking crap about entertainment on Saturday, the wrestling on whatever day it fits, you know, it's just relaxed as whatever day we can do it. And the gaming stream is exactly the same as that when it works.
Right. And my understanding there was you had to switch over to OBS for that?
Yeah. And OBS, you know, you need to put a lot of time in and learn, and I don't really have that option, you know. So I'm just making it up as I go along.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're all doing, right? They make it seem so easy. You know, you mentioned, you know, watching live streams like, say, The Daily Show. Man, they just make it seem so easy. Like there's no work. Like it's just 2 dudes hanging out. But when you start doing it on the back end, you realize like you're putting in a lot of work, and you're you know, when the guest is talking, you have to be half listening to the guest, and then the other half of you is working. And I find that to be, it's a lot easier today. You know, the very first time I did it, boy, it was a mind fuck. I couldn't even pay attention to the chat.
It is, and that's you know, one of the benefits of StreamYards. You know, it's not perfect for all things, but this kind of stuff is brilliant. But to get the most out of StreamYards, you know, you've got to pay the man. And that was originally, I did try doing my talking streams on OBS and I had most of it figured out. I had little, lots of flourishes and flares and stuff, but there were some things I just couldn't get right. And simple things like kind of sound effects and that kind of stuff. Not that I'm a major fan of them, but if they were there and I wanted to use them. And you need to be kind of deep into OBS. You need to be deep in there, man. And I tried my best with it, and I'm just like, do you know what? It's getting to the point where, again, like we said, it's not enjoyable. And if it's not enjoyable, then I'm probably not going to do it. So I thought, screw it. Back to StreamYard I went, on my hands and knees. But with the gaming, unfortunately, you don't really have much of a choice because StreamYard doesn't really seem to like gaming. I don't know if it's going to lag between the kind of computer and stuff. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. I wasn't aware that you kind of had to go to OBS for that. But that's knowledge that somebody else could use, because I don't believe that I'm going to be game streaming. Although I have started watching.
I think you can. It just the results are just not positive. We tried streaming a game last year, and it just was not working. Everything like chat was working, but there's so much latency between what you've got on your screen and what StreamYard is transmitting, so it just wasn't worth it. But I mean, the thing with OBS is that once you kind of fix it, you feel kind of good about it. But there is a lot of knowledgeable people out there, and I think I've kind of cracked my audio issue now anyway. So I'm hoping the next gaming stream I do should be a little bit more better, where I'm not battling the kind of gaming audio, But it would be nice to just have something that you could just turn on and use.
Yeah, well, I'll tune in for that. I did watch a little bit of one of your streams, and yes, if I'm remembering correctly, you were really quiet in it.
Yeah, that would probably be the first one. And the thing is, again, this is my kind of frustration with OBS, is I hadn't changed any settings since the last time I used it, when I was doing a Saturday kind of stream with Steve from the Nerdway. Shout out to him as well. And there was no issues there. And that's the frustration. It's like you change one element, you want to stream something else or screen share something else, and all of a sudden OBS is kind of jittery and kind of breaking down,
Yeah. Yeah, that so to go back, you had mentioned sound effects. Have you looked into soundboards or doing anything with that?
Yeah, on OBS I did, and it wasn't working no matter what I did. So, and like I said, you can go back to StreamYard. I mean, if they could sponsor you for this video, that'd be brilliant, but they're not.
Right.
It's, as you've probably seen already, although there's a lot of moving parts, it's all together. You can upload your sound effects. I think you need to pay the man.
Right.
But it works. And I will sacrifice a little bit of money for something that works, so that I'm just not stressing out about stuff, Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I've heard of others, the bigger channels, they have their stream, the physical stream boards that they carry with them. Cause that.
Yeah.
Nerdrotic, he'll always screw that up when he travels, because he the things are, I always found that to be an interesting thing. But I noticed that you had put the applause in, and that's one of the things I really wanted to get in, and I just totally forgot about it.
Hell yeah.
I just love starting with that applause. So you just upload that into StreamYards and do it straight from there.
You do, yeah. Obviously, you've got to find your sound effect, and you've got to kind of rip that somehow. I've got a couple of programs, 4K YouTube to MP3 and 4K Video Downloader Plus, they're called. They're from the same company, and I've been using them for the last couple of years. And I've never had a problem with them kind of ripping whatever I've needed.
Nice. Yeah. What about...
I think the only thing you need to be aware of is, I think sound effects, the minute you try to upload different sounds, it tries to accost you to pay the man.
What about video editing? What do you use for that? Got any advice?
I'm terrible at video editing, to be honest, which is probably one of the reasons why I don't. I used to use a program called CapCut, I know a lot of people still do, and it was brilliant. But more importantly, to unlock the premium features, so to speak, it was cheap. It was something like a couple of dollars, I think, would work out a month. And if you used it for free, it didn't leave a watermark. But I didn't mind paying. Do you know what I mean? A couple of quid of whatever, fine. But then they pulled a switcheroo and then decided they were going to start charging $20 a month. And I'm like, hell no, I'm not paying that for something that I'm not getting the full usage out of. And then what do you know, the free version, they're going to start watermarking your content. So I was like, okay. So I moved on to DaVinci Resolve, the free version. Because in essence, all I really need to do is occasionally insert like, some media. But for the most part, it's just cutting and removing kind of my mistakes and my kind of whatever kind of god awful kind of stuttering or voice crappiness I've got on there. So that's all I needed, and I'm not paying $20 to be able to do basic stuff.
Right. Yeah. My plan is just because from my understanding is I do need to put out videos to kind of go up in the algorithm. It seems from other people's experience that if you primarily only stream, they don't really bump you in the algorithm.
Yeah, and that would make sense. Yeah. The YouTube algorithm is a complete mystery, I think, isn't it? There's some things that you can that you can think work, but nobody really knows for sure.
Yeah, that it's a mind-bending experience to try to think of it all. But going back to what you said, I just want to have fun, and of course, I want to grow the channel to as many people that want to listen to me as possible. So my thought was, I don't need anything crazy for video editing, because particularly in the beginning, all I'm going to do is try my best. When I lay out episodes like this one, I laid this episode out specifically to tailor to what you do, to what my guest is doing. And that way I can try out some new things and, build in things that you pre-plan to clip. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you have a plan. And that's, a really good thing to have. Whereas I prefer to just throw caution to the wind and just go, just literally just randomly just gonna, whatever it is, I won't be having kind of talking points ready on, kind of Saturday stream is probably the most organized I'll ever be. Where I'll be kind of, online about half an hour before we go live, and I'm sorting out kind of clips and stuff like that. Everything else is just kind of down to the fly, kind of the gaming streams and the wrestling streams, it's kind of, quarter two, let's kind of hop on. But I think it's absolutely kind of the best thing to have a plan. Don't be like me, kids. Go to school.
Well, so I agree. And that's exactly what I would do if I could. But the way I'm attacking this is I'm pretty sure in the end, I'm just going to be trying to interview people. And of course, over the years, I'll end up interviewing, people, hopefully you'll be back many times in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is every week I'm going to be meeting with somebody I have no rapport with. And that means I need a structure, because I don't know if that person is going to be able to provide enough feedback for me to create a long episode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm completely with you there. It is nothing worse than, having, and even if you have got things kind of planned, there's nothing worse than being half an hour into a stream or live or whatever the hell you call them. I kind of hate the word stream for some reason, because in the UK we associate it too much with kind of piss. So when I'm talking to people, kind of, I don't want to sound kind of like my own ass, but kind of offline, I can refer to them as lives. Right. But there's nothing worse than being halfway, like half an hour into a stream, and you realize you've blitzed through most of your talking points, because if you've got someone new, as an example, they may just have a short opinion on something. That's great, but if you intended to take up like kind of an hour or 2 hours, and you're looking down the barrel of only going for like kind of half an hour, it kind of seems a bit pointless, doesn't it?
Yes. And so you had mentioned on your Saturday stream, how many guests do you normally, what's the panel size normally?
With the second channel that we had going, on average, there was about 3 to 4 people. With kind of this kind of newest iteration where I've just kind of hit solo, it's just primarily me, Steve from the Nerd Way. Occasionally we have Thrash Potato. He's a solid dude on X. He talks about kind of similar stuff. So it's quite small for now. I mean, that's not saying because I want it that way. I'm quite comfortable with that. But as I said, like I said to you, if you ever want to come and hang out, you're more than welcome. It's always the more the merrier, but I don't want to force people to, But also, I'm not proactive like yourself, where I'm kind of going out and finding people. Maybe not necessarily the right thing, but I'm quite happy to just, me, Steve, and kind of whoever. The worst thing is kind of solo streaming. That's the one thing I always want to try and avoid, like the plague. I don't know how people do it when you're not gaming. That is
right, and that's kind of the predicament I'm in. Is if I don't get a guest for next week, what the hell am I supposed to do? Because I can talk to myself for hours, but I don't know how entertaining that is.
It's because, and that's the thing that some people take to that very easily, and they're kind of yammering away for God knows how long. But I couldn't do it. That's why I'm only going to do that in the gaming kind of space, But if you do need some people to get together with, I've got a couple of suggestions. I'll throw them to you kind of once we're done. I'll kind of pass them over on X.
Absolutely, man.
And they'll be more than happy to help you kind of hone what you're doing, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I talk about being comfortable, but I'm all for kind of helping each other out and building a little network of people, because that's what keeps it interesting,
Yes. So that's sort of my overarching plan in all this is, first and foremost, I'm very, this is all about me. I want to meet new people and learn new things and have fun. But my secondary goal is, man, if right now you're doing me a solid coming on here, but shoot, if I could get up to a few thousand people and then I could bring you on and share the love, then, what, as they say, a rising tide raises all ships.
You'll be there. You'll be there in no time, no doubt.
And like, I was thinking about, next week, I am pretty sure I don't have a solid on it yet, but I should be having a comic book artist on next week.
Nice.
And the cool thing with that is, we're going to be able to talk about like comic books and how he got into that, and then also his YouTube stuff. But then we can promote his work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you can build this community where we're all just trying to help each other, because at the end of the day, if you want good stuff, we're going to have to find the people that make it, because right now the people that we've counted on making good stuff for years, they're not doing it.
No.
Which is kind of how I got into, YouTube in the first place. Is there was nothing better. So why would I pay for it when I can just watch these guys that I find humorous on YouTube?
That's the thing, isn't it? YouTube has been the almost like one of the biggest changes in kind of television. I don't think, I think YouTube has had more of an impact than streaming, as an example, because I don't really watch a huge amount of kind of new kind of streaming content, and obviously you don't have to look that far as to see why. But my viewership has moved to YouTube because you can find all that kind of stuff, kind of new stuff. And this kind of wave of podcasts has kind of just taken radio and stomped all over it as well. YouTube has changed, entertainment fundamentally, in my opinion, anyway.
Yes. And, to kind of hone in on really what you do, I would, before I ever spend money on going to see something, I'm going to watch channels like yours to see if it's worth my time. And that's the crazy part is instead of going to watch a 2-hour movie, I'll consume 8 hours of people telling me whether or not I should go watch the movie.
That's the thing, isn't it? And even kind of this kind of small stage, kind of where I am, I'll still kind of get that comment, particularly from people on kind of X, that will kind of say, "Oh, thanks for you're watching something and giving a quick." I mean, I was having a bit of a rage about Daredevil as an example. We won't go into too much detail. But you had a couple of people saying, "Oh, thanks for." And I'm like, you don't know how to process it. Do you mean as a compliment? But I'm like, Jesus, like people are actually taking what I'm saying seriously. There could be some danger to that. I should need a disclaimer or something.
I've always said, don't give me power. I will wield that like a hammer.
Yes.
So, yeah, going back. So the reason I had mentioned your Saturday show is so when you have one or two people that are always there, you've got a good rapport, you know that you can literally wake up, jump on StreamYards, get on a stream, and you know that the 2 or 3 of you are going to be able to carry it. So when you invite somebody like me on, it doesn't even matter if I can even add anything to the conversation because you already know you're going to be fine.
Yeah, but I think it's important, and that's something that I always try to have, in the back of my kind of mind when we were having kind of 4 or 5 people as an example, and sometimes you'd have some people that weren't on as often. I think if you are I use the term host kind of sparingly because I don't consider that. I'm just someone on the internet kind of talking crap, but you should be as the main chair. You should be kind of directing the conversation a little bit, and if somebody isn't really saying something, or kind of they've kind of gone quiet, you need to be able to kind of pull them out and say, such and such, what do you think? Because as you say, if they're just going to sit there and say nothing, they don't add anything, and it makes them feel bad, and they probably don't want to come back again. And that's something that I've always kind of just had in my mind anyway. And I haven't really had to kind of re-practice that with this channel, but it's something that I was aware of with the other channel that we did, and it worked quite well. And sometimes that does mean you've got a hard break and tell someone else to shut up. But if they respect you enough, then they will. And if they don't, they don't, I suppose. But it's not fair for someone, particularly if they're new and they're in the same kind of thing that we are, but maybe they're not as confident. As you said, you've got to make sure that you bring everybody up.
Well, and some of those streams, man, they can get wild. And I'll use the example of Friday Night Tights. You get into times when there's 8 of them talking at once. But I noticed probably about 6 months ago, I really started breaking down like the work of streaming and kind of the hows and the whys. And if you ever pay attention, they'll all talk over each other except the guest. If the guest starts speaking, everyone shuts up because that's how you get more guests, is you always highlight the guest. And that's kind of the inside baseball that I think a lot of people don't understand when you get in is, no different than this interview right now. Other people I'm asking to be on here, some of them will watch this and see how I treat you and how this interview goes to determine whether or not they're going to come on.
Because that's what I did when you asked me.
How'd you think I did on that first one?
Yeah, you were good. So that's why I'm here.
I tell you, that first one, I re-listened to that, and I was telling my lady friend, I said, man, Aldous he has such good skill in streaming that like I can pick out all the times that he just saved my ass and carried the show along and made me look like a professional.
Yeah.
And that's a skill.
I wish I could really do the same, but unfortunately, I'm not quite there. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? Because if the broadcast or whatever you want to call it, the stream kind of starts going ass up and you have a quiet period, nobody benefits. Do you know what I mean? And it's the worst thing in the world, and that's always my fear. Like I said, that it's 2 really. What we talked about, where you burn out of content in half an hour. And that other one where it's just absolute quiet, and you have to try and pick the conversation back up again.
Yeah, that's never fun. That's never fun. And sometimes that's a problem I have is I'll get lost trying to remember the thought I have, and then you have that dead air, and instinctually I want to just keep figuring out what it was I wanted to talk about or what it was I was going to say, but you just have to look at your next note and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can make a bit of a joke of it to the chat, and you just move on. And sometimes it comes back to you, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. We're only human at the end of the day, and we don't have a producer or kind of someone. And that's something else kind of that I remind myself as well, particularly with streams and stuff, and to not get stressed out about it, is when you look at how the really top tier guys do it. Yes, okay, they've got them on the screen, but they've got people behind them doing this stuff. As you said about kind of pressing all the buttons and kind of getting ready and all this kind of stuff. The top guys don't have to worry about that. They've got someone for the most part doing it for them. So that's why I never stress out if I make a mistake or whatever. If I mean, sometimes you're just gonna have to laugh about it, and I do. I think a couple of streams ago, I ran my countdown again by accident because I had loop on for some reason. I'm not sure why, and I could have just stressed out about it, but I just laughed because it was funny and stupid. They can be, both things can be true.
Yes, and the thing is, if you're watching me expecting professionalism, you have found the wrong channel.
Yeah, that's very true. You should have that as a kind of motto or something for the channel. If you're expecting professionalism, turn around.
I like that one. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Why don't you number your episodes?
Because no, so I did used to. Again, I can only refer to other channels. I know that doesn't mean a lot because you can't see it, but I did used to originally because I thought I was being all professional. And then I kind of, I don't know, it was an epiphany to me, but probably to any 99% of the population, they probably just don't give a crap. But they don't really care. Who cares? The topics should be, and that's still something that I'm working on. What topics I should have written in the title. The whole thumbnail title is something that's a mystery to me, but I'm aware of it and aware that I need to up my game somehow. But yeah, who cares about if it's episode 210? All they care about is what you're talking about, and I want to try and just make sure that the attention is on what we're going to be talking about. And it's very difficult to, if you think, you can't even put 2 topics in a YouTube title before you start running out of text. And if you start running out of text, the person looking at it isn't going to see it anyway. So I've just went to like one main topic, and then, whatever the show is, kind of Neon Tardis live or, Tardis takedown for the wrestling. The gaming streams are just a hot mess of whatever I think may be suitable. It just didn't seem appropriate. It just didn't. It's not relevant, I suppose. Now it's not like I'm doing a series. You should just be able to jump into any one of them and either like it or not.
I agree.
Is the short answer.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The only reason I decided to do it, because it's one of those things. Some people do and some people don't. And
yes.
I did it so that I'll always know what episode I'm on. That way I never have to count it. I never have to go back and figure out which episode is this. That's the only reason I'm doing it.
Oh yeah, and it helps, when you're doing like an interview format. I mean, that works. I completely get that, because then you can organize yourself, and if you ever need to go back to something, you can think, right, you can look at your kind of however you organize it, you go, right, 4 was this, 2 was this, 10 was this, makes complete sense. But just when you're talking about random stuff every week and there's not necessarily a link between the two, I don't really think it matters.
Right. And also for me, if, later on somebody, because these episodes should be a little bit more evergreen than like the content you do.
Exactly.
And that way, 6 months from now, if you come up in a conversation during one of these live streams, I can call back to the episode you're on and people can go search that episode, That would make
it makes complete sense.
And so on thumbnails right now, and I know some people find it a faux pas to use AI, but I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just really easy to make an AI thumbnail. And so that's what I'm doing for now, just kind of having fun and see what it is. But I think I'll eventually go with something more similar to what you're doing. I like your wrestling one.
Yeah, I will be honest. I stumbled upon that just by. I'd like to say that was the vision. Um, what it was having an image that I couldn't get a better resolution for, and was starting to get pixelated when I stretched it. So I just thought to myself, what if it was black and white? And that was it. That was it, you know. So I better hope that I don't come across like a really good image, but it needs to be in color because otherwise I've kind of screwed everything up. But it's worked very well, and I'll be honest, I just cheat with wrestling. It's really easy. You just go to the website of the promotion, and you just steal a picture.
Right.
That's it. I've got my little logo that I ripped off from a WCW kind of group, and I'm really happy with that. The wrestling one, for some reason, all just kind of clicked into place. And by clicking into place, I mean I enjoy doing it and I like it, and that's the most important thing. The Saturday show, the thumbnail, I'm still not happy with, but I can't really explain to myself why. So that's why I haven't changed it. Because I understand, you know, you need to try and put some effort in with these things. You know, when you're first starting out and you're working out what to do, you know, you have that kind of excuse, don't you? Because you know you're learning how these things work,
Right.
and I've been messing around with kind of software and stuff, and I've landed on something that's quite easy to use, and that even has a template for thumbnails. It just creates a blank because there's things like resolutions and that kind of stuff. And I remember scratching my head trying to do my first thumbnail. Like, I don't know what the resolution for thumbnail is. It's a disaster. So they're tough because I think the more professional you seem to come across, the more stuff this needs to be sharper. So maybe they should just stay rubbish, and then maybe I don't have to worry about it.
Right. At least people don't come in expecting something that they're not going to get, you know?
Well, that's very true, isn't it? But at the same time, there could be some very lovely folk out there, and there definitely are, that may be turned away because my thumbnail was rubbish. But unfortunately, right. I need to sort that out one way or the other, you know. But I don't want to be forking out, £100 a month for, Premiere Pro and all this kind of stuff, you know.
Yes, and that's man, it can be. What do you say for somebody that's just starting? Because I'm relatively an old man at this point in time. I understand that I don't need to spend more money than I need to, but man, I can't imagine some of these kids that want to get into streaming or YouTubing and stuff, and if they're watching these videos that people are putting out about how to do this and how to do that, they are $2,000 in subscriptions deep each month, and they drop 20 grand on equipment, and it gets crazy what some of these people do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where the secret of OBS kind of comes into play, because at least the benefit with the youngsters, with the younger generation, sounding old now, they pick up this stuff way more quickly because it's all natural to them. So you can see younger people with absolute kind of fantastic kind of OBS kind of setups. So they're not necessarily paying for software subscriptions, but as you say, they may be on the trail for decent equipment. But even then, from what I've seen, you can get decent equipment that does the job. You just don't get all the bells and whistles, I suppose. But that's where OBS is a godsend. I would imagine for people that are kind of dialed into it and they can learn it and they can bend it to their will. Because you're laughing, you look at some of the setups that people have got and it's fantastic. But as you kind of mentioned, we're getting on a bit, and I don't have the time or the resource or the patience, more importantly, when I could just slip StreamYards a couple of pennies and just be done with it.
Right. Yeah, and as far as equipment, I mean, unless you're going to be doing some heavy editing, you don't need anything special. Everything I'm using right now is an old broken laptop that I got a Linux system thrown on, and and we're just chrome over the top, you know.
This is it, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've got a little can't remember the name of the brand episode. It's a Logitech brand mic, and it's great. I've got the webcam's good. I mean, my setup is probably better than some, but there's also worse than most. So it gets the job done. I can play a couple of games I want to play. You know, I've got 2 monitors. That makes streaming so much easier. That is definitely something I would highly recommend to anyone. Get 2 monitors. Doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter if they're the same size. I mean, fortunately, again, I'm in the position where you know, I was able to get 2 kind of matching monitors, and they're good quality. But just whatever, get 2 monitors. It is so much easier.
So I realized that when I did my stream last week,
Yeah.
I realized that my setup was trash and I needed to redo it. And right before we started this stream, I realized I hadn't done any of that. But one of these days, I'm gonna fix that, because you're right. Having those multiple monitors. In fact, I think I was watching the Critical Drinker like 2-3 months ago, and I think he had just got a second monitor. And I was thinking, how in the world has he been doing it this whole time?
It's painful, man. It's painful, and you know, we use StreamYard as the example, and I use the little mini wrestling podcast. It's just a breeze. I just set up a browser on the other monitor. I set up all the tabs I want to refer to. I just set one screen share for that monitor, and I just bring it up and throw it down, you know, whenever I need to. And that's just the basics. You know, I hate to think what other people could do with kind of having kind of a second monitor set up. I think maybe having a second monitor should be higher priority than a fantastic kind of camera. You know, I think it should be 2 monitors, then a decent microphone, then worry about your camera, and then whatever else. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised because, like I said, I've been specifically searching out YouTube channels that don't have a lot of followers, and I'm actually really surprised at how many people haven't gotten the message, because I got the message 5 years ago that one of the most important things is your microphone.
See, but that's only because I've heard the same things from learned people, and I think Gary, I think Nerdrotic, when that question comes up about what advice would you give people, from what I remember, every time kind of that question came up, it was always about focus on your microphone. Don't worry about anything else.
Right, absolutely, because that's the thing, isn't it? I notice on all videos, I have no idea if you're giving it to me in 8K or you know, whatever. I have no idea like how great your video is. But if you come across sounding like ass, if it's irritating me, then I can't listen to you.
And that's the that is my frustration when I'm with these kind of gaming streams that I'm doing. It's driving me mad, because I can deal with a little bit of lag and gameplay and stuff, but the audio is the most important thing. It's all very well having hypnotizing colors on the screen, but you kind of need to be able to hear the person and let them decide whether they want to listen to you or not. But
that's a future problem I think I'll have at some point in time. On Wednesday nights, I always watch a on Sci-Fi Snobs channel. They're doing a run through of Babylon 5, and they do one episode each week, and it's supposed to be spoiler free. And I'm a big Babylon 5 fan from back in the day, so I enjoy watching it. Small little chat, we have fun. But one of the guys, there's 4 of them on the panel, and one of them has been having microphone issues, and it's interesting because he can dip out and work on his thing and the show can move forward. But in a format where there's only 2 of us, if it's you, then I don't have anybody to interview while you're fixing it. And if it's me, you're not even really sure what this channel's about.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing you can do, and this is the frustrating thing, so I'll give you an example of at the gaming stream this week that I did. Now, before I went live, I did a recording via OBS because you can do that. You know, like I said, OBS is great. And I did a recording of 15 minutes. I was just talking to myself like I'm an absolute insane person. And then I played it back and it was fine. Like, it was perfect. And I'm like, great, I've fixed it. I think I've narrowed down what the issue was. Fantastic. But then, as you're aware, you then go live, and for some reason, you know, my volume is still like below the game volume, even though the game volume is absolutely kind of right down low. And you know, what do you do in that situation when you're live and people are telling you that, you know?
Right. I mean, because yeah, if you kill that stream, I mean, everybody's got to rejoin, you know?
Yeah. And you could delete, and yeah, that's something I kind of used to do when I was having kind of issues kind of back along, was just delete the stream. But I've just decided not to now, and I've just put a little disclaimer on there saying, you know, to just let people know that I'm aware of it and it's something that I'm working on. But like I said, I think I've got a solution for that figured out now. And unfortunately, it involves using a website to manage my camera, and not actually just directly using the webcam on OBS, which sounds insane. But it's the only fix I think that's going to work at the minute, and I can't be kind of carrying on like that, you know. So I think I've fixed it one way or the other. But this is the thing. This is the whole thing. We're going to streaming and stuff. It's not as simple as you think it is, unless you get very lucky.
It's so interesting because over the years of watching streamers, you get like little bits of knowledge that they'll drop every now in conversations where somebody's like, oh, I make sure that most of the stuff I have open, unless I'm sharing it, isn't on the same browser as StreamYards, because every now and again that'll screw it up. And you're like, wow, like how long did it take somebody to figure that out? And the fact that I just randomly heard that, and you're like, okay, so if I have problems in the future, I already know something I can try to do better, you know?
Yeah. And then you've got people that kind of know this stuff and just keep it to themselves because, and that's not really what I'm about. Do you know what I mean? Is that if you know, someone's having an issue with something, I know how to help them with it. You know, I'm going to be there telling them how I think they can fix it. But again, that's more about building a community and a network of people than acting superior and forcing people kind of into communication with you.
Right. And for me, it's like Tourette's. I literally can't stop myself from helping you if I think I can, you know?
Yeah.
So your last episode of your live stream was Steven.
Yeah, the Nerd Way, shout out. Great guy. Yeah. He's an author. He's a streamer.
I did. I checked him out, and I do need to read some of his books. I find that to be kind of a cool thing. And like I said, something I'm trying to do is when I find somebody who is, you know, not mainstream, we'll just say indie for lack of a better word. But man, when that's somebody you can chat with, that's somebody you can talk to, that's somebody you can follow, and you're so much closer to that person than, you know, say a Stephen King or anything like that. Yeah. And to me, like, you know, the Tolkiens are gone, you know, like those days are over. We need to find new people. And I think this is one of those ways to do it. But he had what most people would consider a hot take. And I meant to pull the clip up, but kids, if you're out there listening, make sure that you have everything ready before you start, because if you don't, then you're going to look like an idiot. And well, you don't want to look like that. So I'll just bring you back to it. You guys ended up getting into a discussion about AI.
Yeah, was this about the protest album that kind of 300 artists had put together, and it was just silence in the studio?
Yes.
Yeah, funniest thing I've ever heard. Thinking about it now.
Well, I found that his take is not the take that you see published anywhere because I find AI fascinating,
Yeah.
and I find logic and reasoning to make sense, and all other things just seem stupid. But the world is full of all the other things, and logic and reasoning typically doesn't get involved too often.
In
Um,
today's world, yeah, definitely.
right, because I watched an interview where Ben Affleck was explaining how, somebody asked him how if AI was going to ruin the industry, and he said, no, we'll end up using it like a tool. And he was saying, we'll add it to shows to where you can be like, hey, what if this guy did this thing? And people will pay a monthly fee to be a part of the show, and they can change the episodes a little bit if they want to for their own private use.
Yeah.
And I was listening to that and I was like, okay, from a business perspective, what he is saying would make total sense.
Yeah.
But the fact that every single one of us can have an AI on our computer, on our phones right now that isn't even owned by somebody else, what the future is going to look like is I don't need to subscribe to your AI. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, the
Now
thing is with
I'm
how,
talking way in the future. And I say way, but I mean, I would say in 20 years, I'm going to have an AI that I tell it that I'm going to tell it, hey, I want to watch an 80s movie and I want it to have these type, I'll say, hey, make me an 80s movie like Bloodsport. And then
yeah,
a movie is going to start that nobody's ever seen in their life, potentially with actors you've never seen. And it's going to go, and at any point in time I can stop it and say, hey, change this, or I can tell it to start me a TV series that I want to watch. And we'll use the Mandalorian, right? You think of something like that where it's a bit episodic. Well, at the end of the first episode I can say, okay, I want it to go in this direction, and when I watch the next one, if
choose
it's a
your own
little off,
adventure kind of thing.
right, I can tell it to do anything. And my story, whatever the story is that I start with, and then I slowly craft it, by nudging it one way or another, or making it do a 180, then that story, that world that is built, it can go on indefinitely.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think it's
where
going to come down
I see it.
ultimately to yeah, kind of all this kind of stuff with kind of big tech, how they like to kind of swoop in, kind of patents and that kind of stuff. I can see kind of upcoming some kind of patent war about this kind of stuff. And that's kind of my thing about knocking smaller creators out potentially. If you've just got all the big guys, kind of Google, Microsoft, China, etc. Banning over it, and you've got patents kind of flying left, right, and center. But I agree. I do definitely think that's the direction that we're heading in, because we're almost already there with image creation now. We're kind of debatably, I mean, I'd say we're 90% of the way there. More professional opinion people maybe disagree, but we're already there with images. We're already seeing stuff come out from kind of video content that AI is generating. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So yeah, I completely think that is where we're heading, one way or the other. It's just about who's going to control and who's going to pull the strings on it.
Right. And in the audiobook world, kind of the YouTube version of that, man, it's flooded with AI stories. Now they're
I bet.
mostly kind of trash. But to be honest, most books written by humans are kind of trash. There's only a handful, like 2 out of 100 that rise above trash.
Yeah, same with we'll take an example, kind of games journalism. There's a lot of speculation that most of that is written by AI now. I think even the BBC was picked up at some point for doing something with AI, something Doctor Who related. I can't quite remember what, but they got caught with their pants down using AI, and they admitted it. Fair play to them, I suppose. But it's everywhere now in text format and image format. So
Right.
Logically, there's only certain other places it can go.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting when you watch these interviews with people that I don't know if they're lying to themselves or if they're just lying to the audience and trying to squeeze all the money out they can before it happens. Because when it happens, you take a studio like HBO or something, once it happens, you either movies and TV as we know it, if you want to watch humans do it and written by humans, it's going to kind of be like plays are.
Yeah.
Like, I know plays exist. I know people go to plays. I don't. But that world still exists and people still fund plays, but nobody's becoming a millionaire by being an actor and actress in a play.
No, or perhaps even creating now, your Lloyd Webbers and stuff are already kind of corner that market.
Right. Yeah, that's but I just see, like, to me, AI is inevitable. It's going to happen. And I think I like Steven's take because he stole it from me without knowing. Because I always hear everyone that's against AI, they always say that all AI can do is you put things in and then it blends them up and it spits it back out and there's no soul to it. And I don't know. I understand that some people are a lot more creative than I am, right? I wouldn't consider myself a very creative person. I'm far more on the logical side, but I view my brain as, no matter what comes out of it, it's just blended up things that went into it. Nothing original has ever come from my brain because everything inside my brain was put there.
Exactly. And I think, that pretty much is an explanation for it, isn't it? It's just the race to put those building blocks in place for these kind of these AIs, programs, whatever you want to call them. This whole thing of saying there's no humanity to it isn't really true. Because if you think about it, as you've just said, everything that we pick up, one way or the other, is told to us, isn't it? With the exception of certain things, I suppose. But
right. Yeah, I mean, even you're getting into some pretty deep psychology, but that's literally how it works. I mean, if you were born and raised in a completely different culture, the structure of who you are, quite literally the structure of how your brain works and which way those neural pathways go, is built into you by your surroundings and the people that you're with.
Yeah. So why can't you assume that same logic or kind of building block kind of thing with a computer? Because the truth of the matter is that they just don't want to admit that that's what's on the horizon.
Right. I think some of it is fear of losing money, fear of losing work.
That's probably the only reason, really, at the end of the day.
But then, I'm projecting. I'm assuming that you're probably closer to me than one of these folks. But we've all seen the trope of the person who's staring at a painting and crying and saying, "Oh, it's emotionally it does this and this," and you and I are like, "That's a pretty painting."
Yeah, exactly.
So I can understand somebody who feels deep emotion and everything with art. I can understand why they would feel that this has no soul, but you can't tell me it doesn't have soul and then, show me a Disney Star Wars movie and tell me that one does.
Yeah, and that's completely the opposite, isn't it? I mean,
right, because that's what I'm saying is,
I mean, you're waving the flag for Disney right now.
Right now, if you don't want AI, you should really be showing me how much better a human could do.
Yeah, this is it. And I do understand. See, I kind of look at it from more of the ground floor level. I think it's going to have massive implications for workers on the ground floor that we haven't really thought of yet. It's all very well saying, you take a. I mean, I know nothing about dock working, but as an example, there's talk of moving kind of AI and mechanics or robotics rather into that kind of area. And it's okay, great. So you get it up and running. You've got your kind of AI driven, robotics driven dock. But what happens to the hundreds, thousands of people that work there? You can't get them to learn to code because, half of Ubisoft are already learning to code again. They can't go to Starbucks, as an example, because there's already 5,000 people applying for jobs there. It's like, it's the Jurassic Park quote, isn't it? We're not really thinking about whether we should. We're only thinking about whether we can. And
yeah,
I don't really care about Hollywood and the creative industry. They've got what's coming to them.
right.
They've thought they've been ever so clever, and now kind of the reckoning is at hand. But I do think from a ground floor perspective, you look at retail, you look at office working. How many times now do you call a call center and it's a AI bot or a AI chat bot? All these kind of people are not going to have jobs, and we don't really have a solution for that other than find another job.
Right. Well, and that's where, man, it gets into a really sticky situation because everyone, you have groups advocating that we should, kind of put the brakes on AI and kind of stop. And I'll be honest, I agree with them. But when I look at the real world that I live in, I realize that if my country puts laws in place and says, hey, we're not going to use AI, well, then the rest of the world will dominate, because how do you stop the entirety of the planet from not developing this thing that will help any
Exactly. It's the same with, and I may upset some people in the future watching this, when you hit the big time. So apologies. But it's the same with this kind of net zero kind of bollocks, as you say in the UK. In the UK, we don't really emit a huge amount of carbon emissions and all that kind of stuff. It's like 0 point something %. But I'm being expected to, pretty much kind of just walk around wearing a paper bag and paper pants, for the environment. In the meantime, China and India are literally burning through, God knows how much, carbon fuel, not even quadruple, not even kind of, double, triple, 100 times that. And it's like, it's just a false prophecy, isn't it? It's like, I'm expected to not have plastic straws at McDonald's for no reason. Just to say that 0.1% of carbon emission, whereas I said, in the meantime, China's there burning it down. If we don't do something to become more industrial, which is ironic coming from a Brit, with the Industrial Revolution and all that.
Right.
China is going to, India is going to, when the
Exactly.
India stops sending their people over to the UK, but that's a different matter. You get what I'm saying, though. Yeah, Lollipop Gang, paper straws suck.
Oh, man, I try in my personal life, I do my absolute best to kind of sit on the fence on things because, the world is always constantly changing around us. And just because you think you're right today doesn't mean you're going to be right tomorrow. So there's not very many hills that I am truly willing to stand on and say, I will die on this hill. But paper fucking straws is that hill. I will die on that hill. No, like, if you can't give me something better than a plastic straw, then give me a plastic straw.
But that's the thing, isn't it? But you have to have a paper straw to protect the environment. But as I say, what's the point in that when other superpowers, rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying they're right, but they're getting ahead by mass producing things to a capacity that, as an example, the UK can never do now because we've stopped all our factories, we've stopped all our steel production, we've stopped kind of digging for coal. And we're putting up windmills that just kill wildlife, but don't really do a lot else. But at least these hippies that kind of block motorways can feel happy, I suppose. So there's that.
Didn't you guys have a bunch of them glue their hands to the road not too long ago?
Maybe. I think that was Germany, though. If that's the case, I'm thinking.
I think you're right. You're right.
And no doubt it was funny and I laughed, and seeing them in pain pleased me because that is cause and effect in action.
It's amazing. A lot of people don't understand how that works.
Yeah, and sometimes they need to find out the hard way.
Yes. So intro and outro music. You do outro music, but not intro, right?
Depends. Just because. So it's not an intro as such. It's just getting ready and something for people to look at, I suppose.
Yeah.
It just it enables me to start the stream and then just give me an additional 30 seconds. I think I've got the video set at a minute, I think. Because I think I've got one set for the wrestling kind of podcast and I've got one for the Saturday stream. And gaming, I've already got something built into OBS. But it's not designed as an intro as such, just to let people know the stream's starting, funnily enough.
Right.
But just more importantly, to get you, again, this is going to sound crazy because, when you're looking at, I've not even got 50 subscribers, but it's just about, when you click go live, you kind of you feel ready and you kind of just get you make sure that everything is kind of ready and you don't have any surprises, and things will always kind of still do that, but that's kind of the premise behind it. It's getting you switched on, like, right, okay, this needs to be ready, this needs to be ready, this needs to be ready, and then when that's done, then I kind of throw the 30-second StreamYards. I don't think I can do it on OBS. I think it just goes straight to whatever it is we're doing, and the same with the outro. The outro more, even though, to be fair, normally just by instinct now I just click end broadcast or whatever, and I don't mean to, but it's just to finish the stream off so people know that we're finishing, but then I can finish up and say bye in the chat, if that makes sense.
Yes,
that is the aim for it. Now, does it always end up that way? Not a lot of the time, because I forget. But it is nice because, I have a core kind of group of kind of 4 or 5 people that kind of join when they can, kind of every week, sometimes like every show this week. And I want to make sure that when we finish up and they're saying bye, that they don't just think I've just kind of disappeared,
Yeah, and this is something I've never heard anybody talk about it, so I'd like to get your take.
Yeah.
Some of the live streams that you watch, some of the big ones particularly, they have a giant video montage that plays beforehand.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if some of that isn't to get past the 5-minute mark for swearing and stuff before the stream starts.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, if I could do something like that, would I? Probably, but not for the same reason, I suppose. I think it's just cool.
Right.
And again, that's probably not the right way to look at it. But I think from a more business perspective, because a lot, these big YouTubers are a business, and I think sometimes we forget that.
Right.
I think you're on the money. I think that's exactly what it is to run that clock down. But I don't know. Again, it's the mystery of YouTube, isn't it? Some people say it's 5 minutes now. Some people say it's a minute. Some people say that it's now down to kind of auto moderation, and a bot will just as easily pop in at the 5-minute mark as it will the 30-minute mark. I don't know.
Oh, in 2 years, it'll be everything. Yeah, like it will know what you're doing all the time.
I mean, I think, like, for example, I've got my my channel is set as not for kids, so it will never report into that demographic, if you will. But right. You get what I mean. I don't know how you've got yours set up. But I've just got it just in my main settings. I don't have to change every video. It's just there. Anything I upload streaming wise will always be considered not for kids. I have to admit, kind of the wrestling stream that we did, it was delightful, the amount of kind of naughty words there. Not necessarily nuclear options, but I think me and Crossman Wrestling were kind of swearing pretty much every other minute. There's been no issues. I wonder if maybe that's also a factor because, we're not monetized or whatever. I think it's just so many moving parts that we just can't begin to figure, I think if you're monetized, then probably, yeah, depending on whatever advertising revenue you could bring in, then yeah, maybe YouTube's going to keep a closer eye on you.
Well, and I think another aspect that plays into that is, like, my stream is only going to get the very small handful of people that know about me, and then anybody that comes over and to watch my guest, right?
I think you'd
So,
be surprised.
well, but
I think you will be surprised because, for example, you came out of the blue into my kind of sphere of silliness. It just works out that way, doesn't it? I think you'd be very surprised.
well, it does. But what I'm saying is that for us, you kind of already know the size that your stream's going to be. And for the most part, the people coming to your stream are going to be the same people time and again. And that'll grow as you grow, but you kind of understand the size. So you and I aren't high enough in the algorithm to be throttled. Whereas if normally 2,000 people are watching my stream, but then I swear, and now this stream performs worse, well, then there's a reason. And that means that my reach got cut by tens of thousands of people. Whereas for you and I, we'll never see that we got throttled because we've never been unthrottled yet.
Because when you're already throttled to the max, how much more can they throttle you?
Right.
Apart from physically.
Right. But when if you've got 1 million subscribers and normally your video is going to hit like 300,000 views, but for some reason this one only hit 75,000, like notice that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why, some of the bigger YouTubers now are making it a bit more obvious that they are a business. I mean, you look at Friday Night Tights as an example. I mean, I don't have this confirmed. It's been quite a while since I watched FNT. Not because I don't enjoy it as such, but it's just time.
It's a long.
There's too much. If I need to keep up to date with the wrestling, for example, because I do want to enjoy those streams. That means you've got to watch 4 hours of content a week, etc., etc. You get me?
Yes.
But Gary's like doing advertising now. If I'm not mistaken, he's like advertising stuff.
Yep.
It just it's the way it goes, isn't it?
It is, and that reminds me, and I'm not sure why nobody in the chat reminded me that I have not acknowledged the chat even once. And Sour Skittles thinks that is hilarious.
I've been keeping an eye on them. Don't worry, they've been under supervision.
I've been periodically looking. I just for some reason forgot that I'm supposed to acknowledge them. Lollipop Gang agrees with us. Yes, paper straws are the worst.
We covered that. Don't worry. We're on top, man. With it, it's a professional outfit. Don't worry about it. It's all under control.
Is UK wrestling the same as US wrestling? Ooh, that's not good.
It's more proper, isn't it? I said I did reply. Don't worry. Exactly. See.
Yeah, no, UK wrestling. You guys got what is that?
It's all the same. I'm only messing. I only watch the WWE because that's all I've got time for. I think UK wrestling has been absorbed by WWE anyway. Which is a tangent in itself. They've got this kind of training around here.
They came in with NXT and kind of shut everybody down, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because I am aware of I don't watch wrestling, but I do like to keep up on the content. And so over the years, I've watched different outfits until I get tired of them. So you're gonna for sure be my new outfit because I don't have one right now. But Simon, he's on What Culture Wrestling.
Yeah, they've sold out.
Yeah, they lost me a few years ago.
Yeah, but, they all have.
Is that Simon Miller?
Yeah, Simon Miller. He sold out because he's a wrestler and he wants work, so he's not really going to talk crap about AEW as an example. So his content always seems to be leaned towards, not intentionally, but if there's any mistakes, he's always going to find them with one company and not the other. It's all about access, isn't it? They've all sold out for access. Some companies give it more easily than others, which is a bit embarrassing, really, because this stuff is so obvious in modern social media.
Yeah, that's the crazy part is I don't know what the future of that looks like because when you look at kind of, and I say YouTube because I think that the internet kind of for the most part the pulse of it is on YouTube and it kind of splinters out
Yeah.
from there. But YouTube is very authentic. You know, the people that are growing, they have a voice or they have found their voice and they say what they think, and then as long as you gravitate towards that style of person, or they think kind of similar to you, you kind of attach yourself to that person, and you start, like you said, people start just trusting what you say. And the reason they trust you is because they believe that you're authentic, that you are giving them the real version of you when you're explaining like what you thought of Daredevil.
Yeah. I mean, we won't go too deep into it because we'll be here all night, and I'm aware we're kind of on the clock. But you look at WWE is going for a transformation. It's all about social media influence. The people talking about wrestling need them now more than WWE need the people that talk about wrestling. They've got kind of big entertainment names in. They've got the whole kind of Netflix thing going on. And that's why they've kind of skyrocketed and had a bit of a reinvention. Whereas kind of you look at the closest competitor, allegedly AEW, they whore themselves out for anyone. But obviously the price of admission is that you then need to whore out for them. And that's what's been kind of going on in the wrestling world. And the wrestling podcast we just did was probably the best one I've ever done so far. We had a good 30 people watching on X and about 7 or 8 watching on YouTube, which was good.
Nice.
Because we're not, we're calling the WWE product as we see it. And if we can move into AEW, maybe we will. I'm not really too bothered about it. But that's what it should be about. It shouldn't be about talking to get influence or talking because you're going to get something. You just, as you said, just be saying what you're feeling. And if people agree with that, great. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I think I see the mainstream failing. And
Yeah.
I don't even blame them at this point, because like what are they supposed to do? Because they can't do what you do. Because they are, like you said, every single person in the mainstream. And when I say that, I mean, I'm talking comic books, I'm talking written books, I'm talking anything. They've been running on this system of synergy where you say the right things, you be friends with the right people, and then you're able to get on this show and it promotes your book, and you get on this show and it promotes your movie, and you get on this show and it promotes your whatever the thing is you're doing. But you have to play nice with the system. You cannot criticize anyone within the system, or that system will blacklist you.
That's the thing, isn't it? Particularly with wrestling being such a niche thing. What these people are going to find out very quickly is I think we're going to see a lot of big, like What Culture. I think they're only hanging on by kind of the skin of their teeth. Cultaholic in the UK is the closest thing. They're going to die ultimately because they're not going to be able to sustain themselves now. People are finding their own independent kind of creators they want to, and they just don't want to listen to spoon-fed crap. And what Cultaholic should have been doing is closing down and getting jobs in the industry that they wanted, because they're not going to be surviving very long commentating on it, in my opinion, anyway.
And that's where I find it to be fascinating when you watch the evolution of that, because those channels started by talking smack, by telling people what they thought, by being authentic. But then they realized, we need access, we have to play nice, we need sponsors, we need to clean this up. And they ended up becoming like, they exist because they were counterculture, but then they became counterculture to monetize that. And then other channels are born off of that. And I just see that that's something that's dying. That is something that's dying. And you see it in the mainstream media. They don't know what to do because they can't do something. They cannot be authentic, because every single person that's sitting in front of a camera that goes onto your television, they are paid actors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, right. They cannot be authentic. That's not their job. That's not what they're good at.
They can take the repercussions that come with that. unfortunately. And I think, like I
Right.
said, we're going to see a wave of these kind of channels or businesses kind of go under. And, it's time. It's time, as you said before, for independent creators to get more of a limelight. Because, like I said, it doesn't matter to me whether people kind of sign on to my wrestling podcast or not. They do. It's great. If they don't, then, it is what it is. But that's what people want. They want to be listening to a genuine opinion, not one that's been bought with access to a show or something.
I agree. So going back to AEW, which I've never heard anything good about, but when you go back to sort of the origins of that, and you'll have to help me out because I can't remember, what was the first show that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks put on? What was that first one called?
It was called All In, wasn't it? If memory serves. And I didn't see it. But that kind of, they were always friends. Well, allegedly friends. Turned out that maybe wasn't the case, as we know now.
Right.
And that's, when you've got big money Tony Khan. Allegedly, he was given the money to fund AEW because he was so bad at what his dad was asking him to do. He was literally ruining football companies, ruining American football companies. So his dad gave him money to start AEW to get him out of the house. And then you're surprised kind of 2 or 3 years later on to hear that there are backstage assaults, lawsuits, and all that kind of stuff. And it shouldn't really surprise you.
No, but I remember when it happened. And again, I don't watch wrestling. No one in my family is really a wrestling person. I just like staying up on top of things. Yeah. I remember telling my lady friend, I said, I think I missed out on something. Because when that happened, like when you were watching all the behind the scenes videos or all the vlogs, like it really seemed like that was the beginning of something. And I do feel like I wish I would have been there.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, that leading into AEW's creation, the first year of AEW was fine because they were doing things that WWE wasn't. WWE was a very stale product. But the minute WWE took the foot off the brakes and we saw this evolution, which may or may not have been because Vince McMahon was brought up on federal charges for pooing on people's heads. They found themselves in real trouble real quickly. And we found you've got a CEO that doesn't know what he's doing. He can't say no. He's got too much money. He keeps spending it. The inmates run the asylum, and that's not really how you run any business, let alone the wrestling business.
No, yeah, that was that's interesting. And I like to get Cornette's takes on it, but boy, he just hates everything. So sometimes you can't trust.
Yeah, true. But I think he's coming from the hardcore place, isn't he, of territory wrestling. Right. And you could argue maybe that's the purest form of it. I mean, look, it is fashionable to hate on AEW, but I mean, you look at what they've just done. I've seen a clip of a guy throw another guy onto how can I put it, like a spiked bat, and this spiked bat has went into this guy. I mean, they can't pull this sucker out, and this is on like live TV, and you've got to imagine the networks for, I don't know if it's HBO, whoever it is they're with now, getting a little bit kind of worried, like what is this doing on television? You've got blood everywhere. You've got this guy just there with this nails on a 2x4 effectively. That's what they consider to be entertainment. It's like, it's not. That's just, stupidity.
No, and I think from what I see from a distance, AEW never learned how to tell stories.
Yeah, and they never learned how to tell people no, you can't do this.
Right.
No, you can't drive a spiked bat into your back. No, you shouldn't. I think there was an incident where live in the UK, funnily enough, someone used a real proper car glass kind of windscreen as opposed to taking it out and fixing it, so to speak. And he was told no, and he still did it anyway. And instead of being fired, they just let it go. It's just things like that, The inmates run the asylum, and you get what you ask for.
Oh, absolutely, and that's the thing. something a lot of people that don't understand how it all works. Um, they point out that Vince McMahon made a lot of horrible decisions when it came to wrestling, but he also made some of the best decisions.
Definitely, we wouldn't have modern wrestling without him. I think the problem is he was getting a bit too old and set in his ways.
Oh yeah.
And we kind of know from lawsuits and information that came out, we kind of know why he was going around the twist, because he seems a little bit unstable.
The memes are glorious.
Well, like I said, I'm not joking when I say poo on someone's head. That's fact. Well, as far as court documents go, he was having a hard time with something, so you can understand. But like I said, the minute he was kind of out of the picture, you had this big merger with TKO. You look at what WWE do now, and there's just no comparison. Production values, kind of everything, camera work, everything about it is better.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so I've got one last thing that I want to pull up, and I just want you to explain anything you can about this.
Oh, Christ.
What are the green children of Woolpit, Suffolk? Or did I pronounce that right?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Well, apparently it's a 12th century legend.
Right.
The story of two strange children with green skin, purportedly brothers and sisters, who were discovered at the harvest just outside of the village of Woolpit in, how do I say that? Suffolk?
Yeah.
Suffolk. They were taken in by the villagers. They spoke an unknown language and at first refused to eat any food but raw, broad beans. So you've never heard of this one, huh?
No, are you sure this isn't the opener to Shrek?
Man, I pulled up. I was like, man, let me pull up. I love old things. So like, like Chupacabra and just anything that's kind of has a local lore. I always want to talk to the people that surround that. What about Black Shuck?
No, again, drawing a blank. History was not my my major, as you can tell. Not many things were, to be honest.
The Devil's Footprints?
The Devil's Footprints. That sounds like a whiskey.
Okay, so very clearly, I need to stop using this website for weirdest folklore and stories, huh?
I think I definitely think that's something to talk about. Because you can use it
the other person knows what I'm talking about.
Well, that's the thing, that you can learn together. And that's the thing, there's so much kind of great history and culture that you can kind of draw from the UK and from the US as well, I'm sure. That isn't being eroded away by kind of what's going on in the country right now. But I would definitely do something with this.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. I do. I guess I was relying on you knowing.
That's your first mistake.
And then you were going to carry it, and that way I didn't have to learn it beforehand. And so that was a mistake. So next time I'm going to know the lore so that I can explain it if I run into this problem again, which I for sure will. I for sure I can see now that this is going to become a problem. Oh, apparently
I don't think it's Coronation Street, Lollipop.
No, I think she wants to know about Coronation Street.
Well, Coronation Street, if that is the case, is it's just like a serial TV program that we have. It's not really my cup of tea, as you would imagine. It tends to be kind of very dramatic sometimes. They probably have more murders than the UK probably has had in the last 100 years, for example. It's very popular, I guess. And the reason why I think it's popular, I mean, there's one on the BBC as well called EastEnders, and that is depressing. If you want the...
is EastEnders still going?
Yeah, it's still going. It's still just as depressing as ever. But I think the reason why so many people watch it is because it's always there every day at the same time slot. It's familiar.
Right.
And it's the same with Coronation Street. Because far short of that, I can't understand why anybody would watch it.
Right. And that's not saying anything bad about you, Lollipop Gang, but maybe you should get better taste. Just saying.
Well, yeah. I mean,
So
if Lollipops
speaking
were kind
of
of watching it,
good
I'm sure it's
taste,
fine. But
right? Speaking of good taste, and seeing as how we got brought into British TV, are you being served?
that was a program. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a very, very long time.
I used to watch it when I was a kid. It would come on our
Yeah,
local station, and
Only Fools and Horses. I don't know if that kind of does the rounds on BBC America.
I don't think
Um,
so.
if you haven't seen that, I would highly suggest you do. If you want to see how good British comedy could be back in the day, give that a go. It's fantastic.
I will do that. I will do that. Yeah. And that, of course, Friday nights was the only night that my dad let us stay up late and we would watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, look how well that's
Time.
turned out, eh?
Well, I mean, we don't stay up late to watch it anymore, but
No. Well, I mean, you have it served to you on Disney Plus during the morning now, don't you?
I believe so.
To watch at your leisure.
So discounting the last, say, I don't know, 5 years. When the new run came out, did you get into it in the beginning?
I did. So
yes, I did too.
I haven't watched any what you would consider classic Who. My kind of the exception to the rule that I do want to watch like an episode a month and then do like a little video on it, a tiny video on it, nothing major. So I want to bring that into kind of the YouTube channel space as well, just finding the time, funnily enough. But
that's a great idea.
No,
I like that.
2004 was it? 2005? I can't remember. But yeah, there's this big fanfare. Doctor Who was back, and I had to do a little bit of research to find out what that was. And it came back. You had Christopher Eccleston, you had Billy Piper, and it was great. And it kept on being great for a while until it wasn't. And then we have goblins literally eating babies on Christmas Day because BBC has no shame anymore. And we have all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, it turned
which
a little
people may
weird.
or may not find offensive.
I think for me, Eccleston, he was when you watch, his last few episodes. I think that was the best Doctor. I think he would have been the best Doctor. Lollipop Gang thinks that Matt Smith was the last good Doctor.
I would
agree with that.
I would agree with that, but I don't think that it's Peter Capaldi's fault. He just wasn't given much to work with.
No.
There seemed to be a directional shift towards his companion and not him. And that's always kind of a fatal way to drive people away. You're not watching kind of Doctor Who, the companion, you're watching Doctor Who, funnily enough.
Well, and actually, when you look at the new run which started with Eccleston, there actually was a pretty heavy-handed approach with the companions. Rose being like the big one, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, true, but it was built up well, wasn't it? That's the difference.
That's the difference.
That's the key difference. It was built up well and it was believable in terms of the story. Whereas when you have Catherine Tate and what they did with her, I mean, I'm not a Catherine Tate fan anyway, so I didn't really watch much of that.
I don't I judge people when they say that was their favorite companion.
Mm-hmm.
I judge them very harshly because Donna Nobles was the worst companion of all.
And it's worse if you're in the UK because a lot of people actually found her funny. And she got that role off the back of this, and I'm going to use quotation marks so you can't see, comedy work. And I can understand the move. It's a business decision. Certainly, it's not necessarily a decent creative one. And you look at what happened with Clara Oswald, and all this kind of stuff. I don't care.
Yeah,
and we're doing the same thing now, aren't we? Good.
Some of the Clara stuff was good. Some of it I didn't like. Even like the Amy Pond stuff. Like I think that was the greatest season or the greatest arc that they did story wise. And now I don't think they did it like perfect. And there's a lot of different problems, but that was the most complicated Doctor Who we'd ever watched.
But if you fast forward and just taking this kind of companion kind of thing, Shooty Gat was first series, strip away everything else about, what you found bad about it. Once again, it was about the companion. And then from what we hear in series 2, it's about the companion. It's all focused the wrong way round. Yes. That's probably the most politest way I can put what's going on with Doctor Who at the minute without spending like an hour probably offending people because, they really enjoy it, etc.
Right. What was the name of, I forget her name, the lady right after Capaldi?
Jodie Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker. See, in that one, I only watched clips. I never watched the whole thing, but it sure seemed to me like there was episodes she wasn't even there, and it was just companions. So I would think
and they did the same with Shooty. I think the second episode, Shooty wasn't in it.
Oh, really?
I could be wrong. It could be the third or fourth, but very early on. And then there's another episode halfway through. The thing with Jodie Whittaker is
then every single show that my lady friend watches from BBC.
Yeah.
Everything that comes from the UK has her in it.
But the problem is that she's a great supporting actor. She just doesn't appear to be a very good main actor. And again, that may, people may disagree, but that's kind of how I feel about it. River Song, for me, kind of drove me away from Doctor Who. So apologies, Lollipop. I thought we were friends. The reason being, River Song was kind of the harbinger, like the emissary of all this silly bollocks that was starting to come. She became more important than the Doctor. And that immediately is not what I want to see. Where you've got intros where her name or whatever, or a message is carved into a cliff face. And I turn off because I don't want to watch it. And I think maybe River Song was maybe a trial run for what they did with Jodie. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but that was the problem for me. River Song became more important than what people were turning the TV series on for, And I found the actress annoying as well. So sorry. Don't hate me.
See, I didn't mind it. I didn't find it great. And in hindsight, I 100% agree with you about the importance level that they elevated that character to.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting. I thought that the thing they did well with that storyline was that the two of them kept meeting out of time. That was the part they did well. Maybe.
Who knows?
But I mean, if you're going to put anyone over Rose, well, you're just wrong, right? We can agree on that, right?
No, because
oh Lord,
Rose Tyler was fine in series 1. Everything was done right. Series 2, though, if you no kind of no shade to anyone, but if you pay attention to how she acts, she becomes a jealous girlfriend.
Yeah,
she becomes quite shitty, to be honest, and quite a bad person by the time of Journey's End, is it, I think? She only rips a hole in time and space to come and try and get her boyfriend back. She's, fundamentally towards the end, I don't think she's a very good character. Maybe that's not how they designed her to be written, but that's my kind of perception of her. For me, using best as in, not an asshole, Martha Jones. Martha Jones, I think, was the so far the greatest modern companion.
Yes, she was great, and her storyline, with her having to walk the earth and everything. I
love that series. I loved the Utopia, etc. John Sim as a master was fantastic. When they kept bringing him back, it broke my heart because it was nowhere near the level of performance they allowed him to have in Series 3.
Right. And I think that's one of those things where Doctor Who failed in the effect that when it did something really well, it decided to do it again.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have done that.
By the way, Shad, it's actually Freema Agyeman's birthday today. So, you know, she's probably watching. I think she's a fan of your channel. So shout out.
She probably is. Shout out. All right, man. Well, again, tell everyone where they can find you.
Primarily, you can find me lurking around on X. So at Neon_Tardis. That's kind of where everything else, kind of all the chaos kind of comes from. So if you do want to find me directly on YouTube for some bizarre reason, but you know, it's a free world, you can do what you want. That's just Neon Tardis. I think typing that in, you should be able to find me now. But I have tried to make a nice little kind of colorful avatar, so it shouldn't be that difficult to track down. But X is the main place. If you can find me on X, then you can find me anywhere, I guess.
Perfect. Chat, I appreciate you coming back and hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Today.
You've been lovely. Lollipop, shout out. Wirren, nice to see you, man.
Right. Yes.
Skills, lovely people.
Yes, all wonderful people. And pretend that there is outro music. And bye.
Peace.